For Comedy Hype News, I'm Dom Smith. Dave Chappelle filmed his second hour-long stand-up comedy special For What It's Worth in 2004. The special aired on Showtime September of that year and featured several memorable comedy bits that include grape drink, Ja Rule, and celebrity worship. He talks about being a black celebrity and how they're locking all our black stars up. At the time, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jackson, and of course, R. Kelly were all in the news facing cases. By this point, we're all familiar with the trial of R. Kelly, where he allegedly urinated on an underage girl. Chappelle told his audience that while they're worrying about whether or not R. Kelly actually did pee on the girl, they're not asking themselves the real question that America needs to decide once and for all. And that question is, how old is 15 really? Now, of course, a person isn't going to be as smart as they're going to be at age 15. But according to Chappelle, 15 is old enough to decide if you want to get pissed on or not. Riley Freeman feels the exact same way.
At what point does personal responsibility become a factor in this equation?
I don't think that's...
I see piss coming, I move. She saw piss coming, she stayed.
Yeah, she did,
And why
but...
should I have to miss out on the next R. Kelly album just for that?
Here's why Dave Chappelle's How Old is 15 Really? Is genius. When it comes to the question, how old is 15 really? Chappelle pointed out that there's a lot of confusion when it comes to that age. How do you treat a 15-year-old? Chappelle's second example was the case of Elizabeth Smart. Elizabeth Ann Smart was kidnapped on June 5th, 2002 at age 14. She was abducted by Brian David Mitchell from her home in Salt Lake City, Utah. According to sources, Mitchell broke into the home of Edward and Lois Smart and their children. Mitchell kidnapped then 14-year-old Elizabeth from a bedroom she shared with her sister, threatening her with a knife. Smart was held captive by Mitchell and his wife for several months. It wasn't until Smart's sister Mary Catherine, who was in the room with Elizabeth when she was taken, realized that the kidnapper's voice sounded very similar to a man named Emmanuel, whom the family hired to work on the roof and rake leaves at one point. This led to the family telling a sketch artist their description of the man Emmanuel, which was later shown on Larry King Live and America's Most Wanted. The drawings were recognized by those related to Mitchell, who supplied pictures. It wasn't until March 12, 2003, where Mitchell was seen with a woman, his wife, and Smart in Sandy, Utah. Two different couples recognized Mitchell and reported him to Sandy Police Department. The officers recognized Smart while questioning Mitchell and arrested him and his wife. Shortly after Elizabeth Smart was found, the state of Utah and several other states implemented the Amber Alert child abduction system. Utah specifically replaced the Rachel Alert system with the Amber Alert. Like previously mentioned, Smart was kidnapped in Salt Lake City, Utah and found in Sandy, Utah. The distance between the two cities is approximately 15 miles. Chappelle, of course, exaggerated the distance for comedic effect.
I'm just saying, if you kidnapped me when I was 15, you gotta take me further than 8 miles away from my house, man. God damn. You can't hold me prisoner around shit I recognize. I'll break away. I'll break away. Go off me, nigga. That's my bus stop. I know where I'm at.
Chappelle continued on by joking that 8 miles away is just 2 exits. Chappelle followed that story up with a quick retelling of a 7-year-old black girl that got kidnapped in Philadelphia. The girl chewed through the ropes she was tied with and had both kidnappers in jail shortly after. The girl's name was Erica Pratt, abducted on July 22, 2002, a month and a half after Smart was taken. According to the Washington Post, Pratt was snatched off the sidewalk outside of her home and dragged into a car with 2 men inside. The 2 men were later identified as Edward Johnson and James Burns. Pratt was held captive after her arms and legs were wrapped with duct tape in a basement. She was eventually able to free herself from the duct tape. She broke through the basement door, she made her way to the first floor and she couldn't get out, so she smashed through the window, and she summoned the help of a couple little kids who were playing in the front of the house. The children pulled Erica out of the window and one of them waved down a nearby police officer. Chappelle noticed that Erica Pratt did not receive nearly as much attention as Elizabeth Smart. According to a 2002 CNN article, while Elizabeth Smart and other kidnapping cases like Danielle Van Dam and Samantha Runyon received national media attention, the vast majority of abduction cases went relatively unnoticed. In March 2002, 13-year-old Laura Ayala was reported missing. The next month, Jai Turner disappeared, and the month after that, Alexis Patterson also went missing. Ayala is Hispanic, while Turner and Patterson are both black, which brought up the question of if race helped determine which cases get media attention. Patrice O'Neal pointed this out in his stand-up special, Elephant in the Room. He spoke on Joran Vandersloot's possible involvement in the disappearance of 18-year-old Natalie Holloway. Everyone in the audience knew the case of Natalie Holloway, but no one could name the girl in Peru that Vandersloot had killed.
Y'all said that like Family Feud. All right, name a white girl been missing for 5 years in Aruba. Nellie Holloway. Survey a Peruvian girl that was killed yesterday.
Chappelle then pointed out the differences in the two kidnapping cases. On one hand, Elizabeth Smart was left alone by her kidnappers and was threatened to not escape.
Don't try to escape, bitch, or we'll kill you. Be right back. Leave. She's 15, sitting in the house by herself. How am I gonna get out of this? Come on, Elizabeth, think. Think, Elizabeth, how am I gonna get out of here? Why don't you just open the door and go outside? Have you thought about that? Do you have a quarter? Do you know your phone number? You're 15, bitch, run. Stop thinking and stop making moves.
The fact that Erica Pratt's story received much less media attention than Elizabeth Smart can be attributed to what some social scientists refer to as missing white girl syndrome. The term comes from the media's uneven media coverage on missing upper middle class white women compared to the media coverage of missing women of color or lower social classes. The amount of focus on Smart compared to Pratt is an example of this.
She was kidnapped at 4 o'clock and at home watching herself on the news at 5:30. That shit is crazy. That's a news story. That is a news story.
Finally, Chappelle tells the story of a black boy from Florida named Lionel Tate. In July 1999, 12-year-old Tate was left alone with 6-year-old Tiffany Unick, who was being babysat by Tate's mother. Tate killed Unick, and according to the Los Angeles Times, Tate says he was merely imitating pro wrestling moves on the young girl. In March 2002, Tate became the youngest American ever sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The sentence was controversial, as many deemed it was too harsh for Tate, who was 12 at the time of the incident and 15 at the time of the conviction.
And they gave a 15-year-old boy life in jail. If you think that it's okay to give him life in jail, then it should be legal to pee on him. That's all I'm saying. You gotta make up your mind across the board how old 15 actually is. That's all I'm saying.
Tate's original sentence was eventually overturned after the prosecution joined Tate's plea for leniency. He was released on 1 year's house arrest and 10 years of probation. Unfortunately, Tate's story does not have a happy ending, as he violated terms of his house arrest and was later sentenced to 10 years in state prison for robbery and another 30-year sentence for violating his probation. Black boys and girls are never looked at in the same light as white boys and girls. A 15-year-old black boy isn't a boy in the eyes of the American media. According to the American Psychological Association, author Philip Arabagoff of the University of California, Los Angeles said, "Our research found that black boys can be seen as responsible for their actions at an age where white boys still benefit from the assumption that children are essentially innocent." NPR found articles that supported their analysis that African American boys as young as 10 years old were less likely to be viewed as children than their white counterparts. This research suggests that this could have a serious impact on the way African American boys are viewed by society and the criminal justice system. This is exactly what happened to Lionel Tate. Chappelle would ask, when is a 15-year-old a kid and a 12-year-old an adult? This is what the media does all the time, and it all points to the dehumanization of black children. How old is 15 really is a genius bit by Chappelle, and it shows his strength as a comedian. Throughout the joke, Chappelle dodges laser beams and bullets better than Pootie Tang. He causes the audience to think of whether or not the age of 15 is old enough to accept accountability for their actions. Not only that, but the joke examines American media and how they cover crimes committed by whites compared to crimes committed by blacks. Again, when it comes to Philip Arabagoff's research, he found out that black boys are 18 times more likely to be tried as an adult than white boys for the exact same crimes. Why is this? Why did Erica Pratt, Laura Ayala, and Jai Turner and Alexis Patterson all get significantly less media attention than Elizabeth Smart, Danielle Van Dam, and Samantha Runyon? Why did Smart's case get more attention than Pratt's? These are questions I don't have the answer to because I'm not racist. Chappelle's gift of addressing controversial topics is on full display. The joke works because Chappelle's main point is not the defense of R. Kelly, but instead, he brings attention to the fact that the expectations of a white 15-year-old and a black 15-year-old are unfairly different. Americans, particularly the American media and criminal justice system, have a different perception of the age 15 when it comes to black children versus white children, as evidenced by research from NPR, the American Psychological Association, and Philip Arabagoff. No one can really defend the actions of urinating on an underage girl, but we all can get behind Chappelle when he calls out the biased treatment that children of color face. Chappelle proves that kids, especially those of at least 15 years old, have some level of autonomy. He brings logic into this scenario by saying if he was kidnapped at age 15, a few miles away from his home, he would be able to find his way back. He uses hyperbole and other forms of exaggeration, with silly pee jokes, hilarious sound effects, and voices for quick laughs in between his moments of seriousness to keep the audience entertained. How Old is 15 really sticks out because it's yet another example of Chappelle putting himself in a dangerous position of having the audience turn on him, only for him to make the audience think he's going in one direction, but eventually taking the bit into an unexpected place, resulting in deep thought and laughter at the same time. And that's why How Old is 15 Really is a genius joke. Stay up to date with the latest news and comedy by subscribing here to our YouTube channel and follow Comedy Hype across all social media. For Comedy Hype News, I'm Dom Smith.